thank you very much for having me. I'm here to talk about some of the themes from my new book, Race Baiter. And, it's interesting. I got the idea a while ago to basically take all the writing that I've been doing about race and society and media and kind of put it into one book. And it was interesting. It was interesting and it was depressing, I'll be honest. I was bringing in this book for a landing right around March of last year. And if you guys remember, around March of last year was when the Trayvon Martin situation became a huge national story. And I'm sitting in Florida close to ground zero. So we have all this reporting going on about this 17-year-old kid, African-American, walking in a subdivision in Florida, seemingly, possibly minding his own business, and he winds up in a fight with a Neighborhood Watch volunteer and gets shot to death. 3 weeks before my deadline, right? So all of a sudden, I have to figure out how to incorporate all this stuff about race and media that came out in the wake of that really explosive international story. And then just as that started to wind down, the Sandra Fluck situation happened, where this student at Georgetown University went before a congressional committee, wanted to talk about having her insurance cover contraception, and for her trouble, she got called a prostitute and a slut by Rush Limbaugh on national radio. And then that cost him 50-plus advertisers and actually threatened the whole business model of talk radio. So the talk radio chapter gets a workover, right? But what it also convinced me of is a really important idea, which is that America is trying something that is messy and complicated, but also really important. We're trying to build a country where our diversity is our strength, where you're not subjugated or held back or set apart because of your cultural background or what you look like or what your gender is, but where we value that stuff and we find that to be something that adds to our strength and makes us a better nation. And for better or for worse, there's not very many nations out there that are trying to do that the way we are. So it's going to be messy, it's going to be complicated, and it's going to be tough. And so are conversations about race and race baiting in America. When I try to have these talks, I basically have a few ground rules. Very simple. First, this is a conversation. So as we go forward, I'm going to try and ask you guys to give me a little feedback. We're doing this for C-SPAN television, so we may have to have some people get you a mic if you want to talk. So if we can get ready, who's going to be doing that? Beth, you going to be doing that? So as the presentation goes on, I may ask a few questions here or there, and if you want to pipe in, just stick your hand up and Beth will come over with the mic and we'll get your comments. But we want this to be a conversation. Second, mistakes don't make you racist. One of the things that I think is both the good thing and the bad thing about demonizing racism in America is that we tend to think now of prejudice and stereotyping as these ugly ideas that are over there on the fringe that only certain people will indulge, right? But in a weird way, that's like outsourcing racism. That's like saying that only certain kind of people who are really awful people and probably wear white sheets, in their off hours, that they're the only people who can fall prey to stereotypes and prejudice. And that's just not true, right? And falling prey to stereotypes doesn't make you a racist. It doesn't make you a bad person. What it makes you is human. Also, everyone gets respect. So if you decide you want to raise your hand and you want to dispute something that I've said, you have an alternative point of view, I definitely want to hear it. And I want to be respectful about hearing it, as long as you're respectful about hearing what I got to say, right? Everybody needs respect. And these are concepts applied to many marginalized groups in America. So as much as I'm going to talk about black and white, because frankly that's what I have firsthand experience with, right? We're also going to talk about other groups. So this can stretch to how Muslims are treated. This can stretch to how gay people are treated. This can stretch to how Hispanics are treated. Any marginalized group in America has to struggle with how its image is portrayed in the media and media outlets that may profit by distorting that image. And that's what we're going to talk about. So here we are. This is old media. Those of you of a certain age in this room will be depressed to know how few students actually recognized this guy and this guy when I gave speeches earlier today. but I'm going to assume that we all know who they are. So Hawkeye Pierce from MASH and Walter Cronkite, the most trusted man in America at one point. One of the things that was interesting about MASH that I heard, until recently, it was the most watched episode of television, the finale for this show. And reportedly, according to myth and legend, whenever the commercials came on for the finale episode, the water table in New York went down, right? Because people were in the bathroom. That was before you could DVR stuff and like pause live television and all that stuff, you know? I was trying to explain to students what it was like to watch television when you didn't even have a VCR to tape it, you know? I felt like I was talking about the Stone Ages. Anyway, so this is old media. And what I tell people is if you want to know why 95% of things happen in media, figure out who's making money or who's losing money. Who's making money or who's losing money. So old media used to make money by getting together these big audiences, and then they would sell advertisers access to those big audiences. And that's how they made money. So if you want to get together a big audience, you can't have a message that's divisive, right? The whole point is to get a bunch of people together watching the same thing. So you're not going to have messages that pit one part of that group against the other part of that group, because then they won't get together and you won't be able to charge Procter & Gamble or McDonald's a whole lot of money for ads, right? All about money. Modern media monetizes niches. So modern media goes out and says, look, we're never going to get an audience the size of the finale of MASH or The Cosby Show or what Uncle Walter used to draw to the CBS Evening News, so we will find a niche. We will find young males, young white males, and we will create a channel called Comedy Central that specializes in the humor that they love. And we will super serve that lifestyle to the point where young white males will show up in droves. Or we will target older women. And we'll create a channel called Lifetime that is filled with movies where they are constantly in peril and looking for men to come and save them from the peril. And that will be the channel that super serves that lifestyle, right? But along the way, there are some channels that use stereotyping and prejudice to draw in audiences and also hold those audiences, inoculate them from going to other places. As a matter of fact, some of the same tactics that are used to mobilize political parties are now used to galvanize media audiences. So when you think about the latest election that we all survived, I was in Florida, believe me, it was tough to survive it. I only had to wait 45 minutes to vote, so that wasn't too bad. But the same tactics that are used to mobilize political parties. So if you're a politician, you don't just say, I'm great, and the other guy won't be good at the job. You say, the other guy's a liar. You say, the other guy can't be trusted. You say, the other guy is morally reprehensible or morally suspect, right? You don't just say that you can do the job better. The other person is somehow deficient. And what we're seeing in modern media, news media, the same thing. So Fox News doesn't just say, we're better at reporting the news. Fox News says, the other side is liberally biased. The other side is not going to tell you the truth. The other side is deliberately going to trick you because they have a political agenda. So you should trust us. But what ends up happening is that erodes people's trust in all journalism, right? So why should we care about this? Why should we care about the fact that there are stereotypes and prejudice in media? Why should we care about this? That is the question I'm asking you that I actually expect you to answer. So why should we care about this? Way in the back. Because we want an objective perspective. Why do we want an objective perspective?
Educated, so we can make an educated decision on the validity of we can develop our own perspective because of democracy depends upon that.
Right. It seems like you're saying in a complicated way something that's much simpler, though. And it's even summed up in one word. I want one more reaction before I get to what I think. Why do we care about this? Go ahead. You can give him the mic right there.
Because who knows who's going to be the minority in the future. It could totally affect you.
Well, that's true.
That-
Self-interest,
Yeah,
right?
self-interest, if that's the
You
case.
might be